Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, September the 11th, 2024. The first order of business was approving the minutes, but they are being moved to the September 25th agenda. So the next order of business or the first order of business, is the following new business, where we will consider the petition of James and Caroline Wicks to amend the future land use map from low-density residential to resource conservation and to rezone approximately 2 125,000 acres from R2 low medium density residential district to RC conservation district, located at 273 Riverside Drive, to allow the conservation of the property. Rachel?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're actually going to have Eve Mergenthaler, Senior Planner, present this one. And fun fact, it is Eve's birthday today. So happy birthday, Eve.
I fully expect everyone to sing later. Yes. All right, members of Planning Commission, the subject property is located at 273 Riverside Drive and contains approximately 8 167,000 acres. The northern portion of the property is zoned RC Conservation District. The southern portion of the property consists of approximately 2 125,000 acres and is zoned R2, low to medium density residential district. Both zoning districts were established in 1978. The purpose of this petition is to rezone the property from R2 low to medium density residential district to RC conservation district and amend the future land use map from low density residential to resource conservation to allow the continued conservation of the undeveloped property. The future land use map currently recommends low density residential and resource conservation uses for the property. Low density residential areas are dominated by single family detached housing at densities of up to 4 dwelling units per acre. In addition to residential uses, they may include public and institutional uses compatible in scale with single-family residential homes, private recreation uses, including country clubs and swim and racket clubs, and private open space are also appropriate for low-density residential areas. Resource conservation areas encompass lands with special natural characteristics that limit land use and development to protect the city's environmental health. These areas may include steep slopes of 25% or greater, or stream valleys, and are planned to remain in vegetated open space with development limited to 1, trails and other passive recreational facilities that involve minimal removal of vegetation, and 2, public facilities that must be located in stream valleys. The goal is to keep resource conservation areas as natural as possible to stabilize slopes, prevent soil erosion, provide natural absorption areas for urban runoff, moderate climate, and provide wooded areas for wildlife and for the respite of city dwellers. In its current state, the property fits the description of resource conservation area. It is undeveloped, consisting of vegetated open space, and the terrain is characterized as having steep slopes of 25% or greater. Pigeon Creek and its tributary form the western borders of the property. In addition, it is likely unfeasible to develop residential uses on the property as there is insufficient frontage for a city street. The proposed resource conservation use should be compatible with the adjacent single-family homes, and no improvements are proposed for the property. The city's technical review committee reviewed the petition on July 23, 2024, and the Planning Division recommends approval of this petition. Thank you.
Thank you, Eve. Who is here to speak on behalf of this petition? If you'll come forward and state your name and please sign in.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Carolyn Wicks. My husband James is with us, and our 7-year-old son Aiden is here as well. And we're supported today by our neighborhood family, the residents of Riverside Drive. And if you live on Riverside Drive and you're in support of this petition, could you raise your hand for the Commissioners? Thank you so much for your support and attendance today. Today, you will notice on the page 5 of our application, there were 61 residents who signed this petition right at the beginning when we submitted our application in support of this rezoning. And if you vote yes to support this conservation rezoning, you're not only recognizing the vision and desire of our Riverside Drive residents, but you're also supporting the recognized legacy of Lynchburg in balancing the development and green space protection. Last week, Lynchburg was recognized as the 4th best city to move to in the South. And why? They didn't mention about business development and all the other great things that make up Lynchburg. They mentioned because of nature and our love of nature here. The development vision of this city is that Lynchburg's children, like Aiden, don't have to go to the Blue Ridge Mountains to find old growth forest and animals. They should find it in their own backyards. And so by considering this conservation rezoning for 273, you are making that happen because it's our family's purpose and our privilege to maintain this forest land in an undeveloped state for the beautification of our neighborhood and for the preservation of animal habitat. If you vote yes, and Eve mentioned this briefly, if you vote yes to support this conservation rezoning, you're recognizing the zoning precedents that you see in the surrounding forest lots. You can see on the plat that 273 Riverside Drive is part of a canyon with 6 other forested lots. And the zoning precedents for the 5 connecting lots is RC conservation. The one exception you'll see down on the southwest corner is Timothy Burnett's forested lot, which is zoned R2 because it connects to that paper road, which is Cool Spring Avenue. 273, though, does not have any paper road access, which is needed for R2 development. This lot also does not have water, power, or gas utilities. So if you vote yes to support this conservation rezoning, you're heightening the accuracy of the city record. When we started the plat map process, the survey process, we found some errors, one of which where it was noted as 6.1 acres when it was actually 8.17. And another error we believe is the mixed zoning. We believe this discrepancy was based on a perception that 273 Riverside Drive connected to the paper road, which based on the plat map that we did on May 2024 shows that 273 Riverside Drive does not legally connect at any point to this paper road. So for the sake of Riverside residents, the green space legacy of Lynchburg, and the other plat map related supports that Eve mentioned and that I've mentioned in the rezoning, we ask you to vote yes for our conservation petition. And if this is the time, I'd love to answer any questions you have.
We might call you back up.
All right, I'll be
Thank you
happy to
very
come up.
much.
Thank you.
Make sure you sign in if y'all
Do
haven't.
we all need to sign?
No,
Just her?
I think it's
It's all good.
fine, just.
one per person.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Is there anybody else here to speak in favor of the petition?
Good afternoon. I'm Carla Hamilton, and I live at 275-279 Riverside Drive in the Riverwood subdivision. I love saying that. Part of the reason why Riverwood is so awesome is our green space. One of the reasons that people want to move on our street is when they walk on our street, they just are stunned at the beauty. And that's why the green space is so important. If I could give you some pictures of what I see when I stand in my driveway, you will understand the amazing neighborhood that we have. Can I bring it up?
Sure. Thank you.
In our neighborhood, we are able to, in most cases, sell houses within 2 to 3 weeks. And that's because we care. We take care of our property, we upgrade, we add on, and we take care of our green spaces. So we are here to say we are so in favor of them getting this conservation status. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else here to speak in favor of the petition? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of the petition? All right, the public hearing is closed, and now we'll open it up to commissioners for their questions.
I guess I have a question. I'm really curious, is there an incentive for moving a piece of land you own to the conservative conservation status? Any kind of,
Tax.
other than tax, like you can have someone hay your field and then you get a lower tax, and is that the only?
Well, I'm not sure that would be possible in this case.
Yeah, you can't
just
hay that.
Due to topography. Essentially, this is the petitioner's choice to move forward with this. We had talked about a couple different mechanisms. If the goal was conservation, they could consider something like a conservation easement, which is more stringent and done through other organizations. This does not place it into a conservation easement, but it does, I guess, limit development potential.
Thank you.
I guess, to follow up with that, the city does not tax RC any differently in terms of assessment value than,
So I would have to verify that. I think the assessor's office may look at the topography in this case as well, regardless of the R2 versus the RC. I believe, actually, did this come about as part of a tax conversation? Okay. Would you mind expanding?
Yes, it did come about. That's not our sole reason, but it's certainly one of those things that came up. The property was originally assessed at $5,600, and then last year we got a bill for $20,000. It was assessed at $20,000. So I went down to the assessor's office and I said, listen, aside from some deer babies being born, nothing changed in this land. And so he said, well, we'll put it back to $5,600 because of the reasons mentioned by Eve and Rachel and that you've said. But he said, you've got to get this rezoned. So, and then he gave me Rachel's thing and said, go do this. So here we are. But, the other reasons too is just when Lynchburg is building up so much, and much of that is good as you balance it with, green space. But I just don't want someone in the future, if we should lose possession of this land for some reason, which we don't foresee, we own it outright. I just want to send a message to future generations that says this is special. It's special to us as a community. And once you get something zoned as conservation, it's very hard to undo that. And so we really want to set this as kind of our legacy as a family, that it really matters and that this is critical to our neighborhood.
Rachel, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's right.
Rachel, did you say, I'm looking at the topography here, it looks like there really wouldn't be a place to put a road in there anyway. Is that right?
So as noted in the report, the property does not have frontage on a city right-of-way. There's a small little sort of alley-looking thing that you'll see on the mapping, and that's the Cool Springs Avenue right-of-way. But as determined by their survey, their property doesn't even touch that, and even if it did, it would likely not be sufficient because it's only about 30 feet wide, which I believe a city standard is 50 feet of right-of-way.
It looks pretty ravine-y going down to the
It is, on the topography, it's this bright red area, which is 30% plus slope.
and there does appear to be some advantage, based on your comment, to getting a different zoning designation for a tax benefit. Okay, yeah, I don't blame you.
Thank you.
no, that's common at the state level. You get a conservation easement, you get a tax break. That's one of the incentives. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it should be encouraged.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
that's why I asked, because I know
Yeah.
other people should think of that as well.
Yeah, we typically are chipping away at resource conservation. And I would like to agree with you that it's very difficult to do that. It's not been difficult in the city. So I think we need to reinforce the value of RC and make it difficult to chip away at it. So anything like this where we're increasing resource conservation is a great thing. I just wish it was more acreage, but we'll take whatever we can get.
That's right.
I would be in favor of it for the same reason. I think, again, one of the insights I've had on this commission is how much water there is. And to be able to take care of another piece of it that ultimately dumps into James makes a heck of a lot of sense to me. I would move, if nobody has any more questions, that we accept accept the petition as presented.
Second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Good luck with city council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next order of business is the following new business where we will consider the petition of Nadine Durbin on behalf of Kerr Holdings LLC for a conditional use permit in a B4 urban commercial district to allow the use of an existing structure as an auto body shop at 1101 Fifth Street and associated parking at 1107 Fifth Street. Oh, pictures.
Thanks for sharing this, by the way.
Thank you, very pretty.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of Planning Commission. The subject property is located at 1101 and 1107 Fifth Street. The structure was built in 1949 and previously used as an auto repair and body shop. This project will look familiar to Planning Commission. As you recall, the 1101 Fifth Street parcel was previously proposed for rezoning to B5 General Business District earlier this year. The commission recommended denial of that rezoning petition, and City Council denied it as well. The purpose of the CUP petition today is to allow the use of the structure as an auto body shop and associated parking. The properties, as I said, are still zoned B4 Urban Commercial District. Heavy auto repair, including auto body shops, are permitted in this district upon approval of a conditional use permit by City Council. The properties are recommended for neighborhood commercial uses on our future land use map. These areas are intended to consist primarily of office, retail, personal service, and restaurant type uses that are scaled and designed to be compatible with the immediate neighborhood. Patrons can walk, bike, or take a short drive to reach their everyday goods and services. A number of auto uses were in existence when City Council adopted the Fifth Street Master Plan. The plan recommended against the expansion of auto-oriented uses, and it also noted that parking lots and vacant lots can create visually dead spaces. Again, the properties are included in the master plan area. And again, the purpose of that plan was to provide a vision and blueprint for the revitalization of the Fifth Street corridor. And with the adoption of that plan and the subsequent rezoning of the properties, City Council did make a conscious decision to move away from the auto-dominated uses that had previously contributed to a negative decline in the area. There have been significant public and private investments in the area that follow the vision of the adopted master plan, and land use decisions should support that vision, just as the public investment has. The master plan explicitly recommends against the expansion of auto-oriented uses, and the rezoning of the property, which was, again, denied by council in July, would have allowed the expansion of those auto-oriented uses and permitted many other intense and inappropriate uses in this setting. In contrast, the CUP petition allows a specific use of auto body repair within the existing building without changing the zoning. And while the use of the property as an auto body shop ultimately does not align with the long-term goals of the plan, the use should not be detrimental to the surrounding area as long as it is limited to occur within the existing structure and the recommended conditions are followed. Redevelopment or adaptive reuse of the property as recommended in the plan could still be pursued in the future. So while allowing the use of this particular existing building should have limited impact on this corridor and surrounding neighborhoods, it's worth mentioning that, we do have some concerns that this could be viewed as precedents to allow an influx of additional auto-oriented uses either through the CUP or rezoning process. This would be contrary to the vision of the master plan and should be weighed carefully both in this instance and future land use decisions for the area. With that being said, planning staff recommends approval of the petition with the conditions outlined in the report. I would be interested to see if Planning Commission has any additional conditions they feel strongly about adding to the recommendation. But yes, with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions after the public hearing.
Thank you, Rachel. Who is here to speak on behalf of the petition? Hi, please come forward and state your name and sign in. Bless you.
I want to sit there and say, I'm back. All that aside, we're back to present again a request for us to take a look at allowing us the opportunity to use that facility as a body shop with the wisdom gained from the first time around, understanding that we need to be, while I had spoken the last time about trying to be a part of a community, maybe we didn't listen real well to everybody. And we've been working with Mr. Martin and Rachel on how do we take this facility and present it and make it into something that will fit that community comfortably. Not an eyesore, not a circus, but a viable business that is aesthetically pleasing, that is not disruptive, that fits in. We believe that we're going to create jobs. We're creating a tax base. We're not asking for money or grants or assistance in order to do this. We have basically a turnkey operation. And we will work with and continue to work with the city to make this something that fits the master plan, that fits the community, the people and the people within the community that they're comfortable with. And so we're here today to listen to your ideas, your thoughts, your concerns. We're open to those, and we will work in order to make that happen. Thank you.
Can you state your name, please?
My name is Dave Durbin.
And your relation to the Kerr Auto?
I am part of
Holdings?
Kerr Holdings.
Okay,
It is Mr. Kerr, who owned the facility, was my father-in-law.
okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of the petition? Can you come forward, please? Please state your name and sign in. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sheila Irvin, and I live at 1006 4th Street. I have been there for 59 years. I've seen a lot of things evolve, and I've seen that body shop there for years. I don't understand why they can't have a body shop there. It's been there. It's already equipped for there. It's already ready to be used. It makes no sense to me. If somebody could explain to me why you would not use a facility that's already ready, already has been doing this, and make it out of something else where somebody has to dump a lot of money into to change the structure of the building to do something different. It's already ready. Why not use it? It's just sitting there. And the money that someone would have to put into it to change it, to me, makes no sense. You've got people here that's willing to do whatever needs to be done according to what y'all want or the city wants to stay within the boundaries to make this happen. I am with them. I don't feel like it's any issue to it. And I have no plans on leaving where I live, and I have no problem with it.
Thank you, Sheila. Who else is here to speak in favor of the petition?
Hello, Planning Commission. My name is Marvin Marcias. I'm the tenant on this property. I'm the one that's gonna run the body shop in there. And we've been in the city for 15 years doing our business, and we love it to be in the city. You know, we love this corner. We make it look good. We clean it up. And I've been, struggling right now because they don't let me operate what is my only skill I have. I'm original from Honduras, but I'm legally in the United States to be in States and working. So I come here, I went to college in my country for work on cars. So I come here and I had the opportunity to be working cars. I love paint cars, I love make a car look good. And Mr. Carroll family gave me the opportunity to lease in this building so I can take care of my kids. I have 3 children, American citizens, that depends on me and my wife. We are hard workers. We work in the sun every day, watching cars right now. And when I started with nothing. I come with dreams. I was working 18, 14, 16 hours a day, every single day. So now we pride and require, please have mercy and give us opportunity to take care of children, because that's the only ways. It's my skill to make a living. I'm not a restaurant man. If I was a restaurant man, I already have a restaurant there, opener. But I'm a body man. That's what my grandma sell cow, chicken, anything to pay for my college and my country. So when she sent me back here, so I come, and that's the only skills I have right now to make a living. And me and my wife and my children. Please have mercy and give us opportunity. We promise that we're keeping the property clean as now. And we also have conditional use. The government has the power, if we're not doing it right, to take our conditional use. So please have mercy with us, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Marvin. Is there anyone else here in favor that would like to speak? Please come up. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Hope everybody's doing well. Seemed like it was just yesterday we were here having these conversations. But what has transpired between then and now is that the great Mr. Kerr passed. And that was a very sad situation. So in respect to Mr. Kerr, I would humbly ask that you allow Mr. Kerr's building to continue its use for the respect of Mr. Kerr. Mr. Kerr put a lot of years in this neighborhood. He helped a lot of people. He helped my family. I grew up here in 17 Harrison Street. He helped me when I started my business across the street from him. And so Marvin is taking over this building. And Marvin's very similar to I am. I'm a small business. He's a small business. Marvin and I had to go through the street being torn up for that roundabout with no city help. He moved from one building because Mr. Hunter, which portrayed to be his friend, bought his building out from underneath him, so he had to leave. So I was interested in the building to buy it. And the only reason I was interested in it is because I was fighting the zoning change when I took over my current building. The tenant there before me was selling cars. I took over the building. I can't sell cars. So I went through the whole process, and they told me at city council, the only way you could sell cars is you buy Mr. Kerr's building because it was grandfathered in. And so when I started to negotiate with Mr. Kerr, I couldn't come up with the financing, the down payment. And so at the time, Marvin was out of the building. And everyone was on the assumption that that building was grandfathered in. And so I said, Marvin, I can't buy it. By all means, you take over. And he went into that building on the assumption that it was grandfathered in. And I was on the assumption that it was grandfathered in as well, because that's what was told to me. And then turned to find out it's not grandfathered in. So I'm here to humbly ask you to allow him to do his profession. It's going to help me because I'm into the mechanical part of it, and I do have customers that are into the body part of it. So I can transfer my body shop customers to him, and I don't have to send them to 221. I don't have to send them, Amherst. It's right there, and he can serve our community that desperately needs a body shop that's right in our neighborhood. They don't have to go far, and he's reasonably priced. So I'm here just to say, I think that it will help the city. I think that it would give a relief and take the burden off of Mr. Marcia, because he hadn't been able to work. And that's hard when the only thing you know how to do is body shop. That's very difficult. And so I'm here just to say, if you guys would just have a little mercy and allow him to do his profession, we would greatly appreciate it in Ward 2. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And can you state your name? I know you, but
I'm Rodney Hubbard,
thank you.
Ward 2 candidate. Republican.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of the petition? Please come forward. Make sure you state your name, please.
How y'all doing today?
Good, thank you.
My name is Terrence Spencer, and I am the owner of Touch Class Car Care on 2001 12th Street and over 1205 Rivermont Avenue. We've been in business since 1997. I've known Mr. Marcia since he's been here, because owning a car wash, auto detail shop, people come in with damage to their vehicles, need stuff done, we send them to him. And also a cost of business, if we mess something up, we send them to Mr. Marcia. And I just didn't understand. I thought that building was grandfathered in. And then I heard of some stuff that was going on with Mr. Hunter, where he has been harassing Mr. Marcia and his family for trying to do an honest living. They could come here and bring drugs, prostitution, all kind of things, but they're trying to make an honest living. I think they should be able and given a chance to do an honest business. That's what this country was built on, small business. So I just ask that y'all please give them a chance to do what he knows how to do best, and he can take care of his family and bless this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else here to speak in favor of the petition? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of the petition? The public hearing is closed, and I will open it up for questioning from the commissioners.
Question for Mr. Durbin. Durbin, is that?
Yes, sir.
So I was curious how this was going to go.
I'm sorry?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was curious how this was going to go. I didn't know what the specifics were behind this because, as you pointed out, we kind of visited the building on the other side of the street. I have looked at this building, and I noticed there are probably 3 or 4 windows broken out of it on the side. Looking at the overhead, it's kind of a blighted building. Now, you mentioned that you would like to see make the building fit the vision of the comprehensive plan and concerning aesthetics and those sorts of things. How are you planning on doing that? Because
Well, we've been working, like I said, with Mr. Martin and Rachel on looking at the building. What do you see are the changes that need to occur? Yes, windows, very obvious. There are a lot of aesthetic things. I'm gonna call them minor in the grand scheme of things. It's just that when Mr. Kerr left that building, there was a lot of vandalism that occurred. The place was in even worse mess and Mr. Marcia came in, started cleaning it up, clearing out brush. Yes, we do have a number of things that we still need to do in order to make it what you would consider a viable business where you would be comfortable pulling up there and having your vehicle repaired.
do you have anything that you've proposed at this point? I mean, I understand you're working with the city on what further.
Well,
details.
we're looking at painting the rest of the building, repairing the windows. We're working right now with because of the back of the lot, there are cars that are going to be parked there. We're putting up fencing so that it cannot be viewed. If you're traveling up and down Fifth Street, you can't see wrecked cars or damaged cars in any way. We don't want it looking like a salvage yard. We want it to look, the cars that you see would be either finished product where they've all been repainted, and that's really it. Nothing else. As far as any trash or body, broken body parts, we have an area where we can actually put a dumpster in. Nobody could ever see it because it's in an enclosed. There's a building in the back that has a drive that a large dumpster can go in there, and that's where all the body parts go. The door's closed. Nobody could ever see it. No, you don't have to worry about somebody going through and pulling out parts. We're trying to make it look our goal is to make it aesthetically pleasing as possible so that anybody walking up and down the street wouldn't feel like they're walking past something, a trash heap. It's got to fit. Mr. Kerr was a fanatic about aesthetics and what people thought. View was that if the place looks like a trash heap, you're probably doing trash work.
So I hear what you're saying. I think it's the job, at least from my perspective, to hear what the community wants and not just to adhere to some arbitrary or even a planned vision of what we'd like something to look like. And what the community has to say is important in this case. At least personally, I would be inclined to vote for it. But the condition I would attach personally, Rachel, would be that an aesthetic rehab plan put together with the city would be approved by the city that would make the appearance of it more consistent with what we're trying to do there and what has already been done downtown.
And we're in full agreement with that. Understand completely that we're going to ask for input. We are, what do you see that fits? We're not just, we're open to that. That makes perfect sense to me. We've had a couple of interesting ones where you talk about, okay, well, we should put up a fence. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, we'll put up a chain link fence. And Rachel's like, no, 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 no. We don't do, that's not how we're going to do it. So, I mean, we're open to that. Definitely.
Yeah, I think if there are specific conditions, like one I just heard you mention, like discarded or junk parts will be disposed of properly, secured, and not visible from the street. I mean, I've got one in here about dumpster being screened, but, if we want to make it crystal clear that we don't want bumpers and other parts laying around invisible, I think that's a reasonable condition to say that, it'll be contained and
I'm not trying to be unreasonable with the details.
no, yeah.
I'm looking at the hard work that's been done there already. And some details wouldn't hurt, is what I'm suggesting.
I'm sorry?
Some details there would not hurt, is what I'm suggesting. Maybe if you had any artists in your family or your group that could actually show
Yes.
what this might look like, and then have the city take a look at this and say, okay, this would be consistent, or that would not be.
Right. Well, I would not be honest if I didn't tell you that we started moving in that direction. And after the first meetings and then the meeting with city council, it was, wait a minute. They don't even want the building here. It's why spend another dime on this property if this isn't what they want? What do you continue to throw money at it and continue repairing it and working on it?
Well, if it's approved, it's there is the thing. It's there, and there's no getting rid of it, and the zoning isn't going to change. And as the city has pointed out, this will set potentially a precedent for other things in the area. So it has to be a very good one if it's set, at least from my perspective.
Sure, I understand. It's
2 points. Chuck, you referenced an arbitrary plan. I mean, that arbitrary plan is our future land
I'll say
use
arbitrary
map.
or specific, yeah.
Either way,
Yeah.
it's our future land use map, plus the Fifth Street corridor master plan. Those are far from arbitrary.
Yeah.
They're
I didn't
guidelines.
suggest it was arbitrary, that's why I corrected.
And,
Yeah.
and the precedent, that's the whole issue here. And the end of the report from planning, I mean, I think it was kind of glossed over. It says they have serious concerns. And we need to take that into account. I'm actually surprised that it was shifted. The recommendation was shifted. Because to me, it's the same. Nothing's really
I
changed.
guess I'm kind of making an assumption on how others might feel about this. And so I'm trying to keep it narrowed down to my desk right here, but maybe some other comments might be in order.
So if I could kind of summarize the potential conditions that I heard there, rather than saying the blight will be remedied, because that is a little vague. One condition would be about the junk parts and the disposal being secured and not visible from the street. And then the boarded and broken windows would be repaired. Those sound like kind of the meat of it. I think paint is.
Signage, appearance, roofs, sidewalk, parking area, fencing.
I mean, I think the parameters of asking for a plan, to correct the blight is not a bad idea. I'm just don't want it to hinder what is going to be done if this indeed goes through. Because, I mean, how specific do you get? And, is it just replacing windows, or is it, does the sign have to look a certain way? Does, what I mean? So like, how far do you go with that? That's my first point. My second point is, and I have thought about this since you guys left, about the grandfathered item, and I still believe, and I don't know if we have an attorney or, we've had a legal opinion about this, but the usage of the B5, this building has been used within that B5 ever, since the beginning, because the car wash is still there. So that is still a typical use of B5. So the building that use has never stopped. And but it's the address, right? I mean, it's not like there were two different addresses. It's not like they're two different parcels. So the building itself is being used as a car wash. But the backside isn't being used as but it's the same use. So
They're not the same use.
they're within the same use,
It's
yes.
two uses occurring in one building. That's what it was. And then one of those uses stopped and that lost its grandfathered status.
Car wash and an auto shop are not the same use.
But they're within the same B5
Well, in this
usage.
case- In this case, shutting down what it was doing before released the grandfather clause, and it no longer qualified under those purposes. That was kind of part of the crux of the discussion.
Yeah, I guess my question, and I'm sorry, I wish you would have stayed, like, how old is the ventilation system in this facility? When was the last time the ventilation system was used for painting cars? Because that's what would determine really
Some upgrade.
how long it's been used, because DEQ has a pretty high standard for ventilation. And that's probably my biggest concern. I appreciate you bringing back I mentioned it in our last meeting that if this was a conditional use, it might change a little bit of my thinking, but probably my biggest concern is the impacts in the community. Jobs are good, but body shops are not like great for living around. And I don't know of many people who want to live near a body shop. And usually it's because of the air quality. Those are major issues. So what would you say about the ventilation?
DEQ and EPA are very specific about what type of ventilation system, what type of filters are actually used in a body shop. They're not cheap. And that system is already in place, all set. Actually, we had the old fan was starting to fail, and we had a spare sitting there so that we could put it in. I understand that there could be a question of odor, but I doubt it, not today. We have our automotive repair shop on 221. We have a body shop right next door to us, which is a high volume body shop. And then Billy Kraft right down the street from him. You walk back, you couldn't even begin to tell that anybody's painting cars. It's not the technology.
Is that building,
has
does it have like 5-year or less technology? Is this newer technology in the building? I know it had been there like 20 years ago.
6 years. And you got to realize, in order to paint the way vehicles need to be painted today, you can't have contamination and you can't have paint wandering around and being sucked out of the building, because that also creates debris and it creates an issue with the quality of your paint job. There are a couple of reasons behind it. It's better air quality, but not just because of breathing and the fact that everybody uses respirators when they're painting anyway, but it's the fact that you can't have all that paint flying around, because it's going to come right back onto the car. I think we've all used cans of spray paint before, and you see splatters everywhere, but that doesn't happen because it's pulled down and, with the downdraft booth, you don't have that kind of issue. I doubt very much that you stand more of a chance of smelling a hamburger from Burger King, walking past it, than you would walking past a paint shop. There's that much filtering that goes on within that system.
To tag on the question, is there additional upfitting of the building itself in order to further facilitate it being a repair shop?
No, it was it's been updated years ago, and it has stayed pretty much the same. There's actually no, it's turnkey. Everything is all set. There's no modifications that are required at this point in time.
Including inspections.
Pardon me?
Including inspections. So, I mean, a lot of the things we're talking about would be covered through periodic inspections.
Certainly. And it,
because you have that on the car wash side as well.
It's not even within the city, it's the state and federal that are going to, that wander, they come wandering in unannounced, just to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing because of the quote unquote environmental impact, which that's also detrimental to the business as well as it would to the neighborhood. So
Maybe to know what Dave was mentioning a little bit ago, it's been a body shop for a long time.
Correct.
But the goal of the last comprehensive plan was kind of change the character of that neighborhood. And so we're kind of at a crossroads here, is by suggesting to council that it go ahead and go forward as is, we're preserving that element of a character that we'd otherwise be trying to change. So is there a way to incorporate that in a way that makes it fit? Or, do we turn this down? And does that hit on anything you were saying? Because the character, we're trying to change the character of this area, even though it has, for a long time, this has been part of the character that was, and we're trying to make it different now. By letting it stay, it's going to kind of thwart the will of the last comprehensive plan. And will it thwart the will of the comprehensive plan we're trying to put together now?
Well, I think we're guilty, us in council, of using the comprehensive plan when it supports what we're trying to do and ignoring it when it doesn't. And so we need to be consistent.
And I question, so if you stand at that building and look off to your right, those are buildings I think you all also own, right?
I'm sorry?
The buildings that are across Fifth Street on the
Across
corner of the
street from me
garage.
is an automotive repair shop.
And that's owned by
Candy
you
corner
all
to
as well.
me is an automotive repair shop. And then,
right
next across the street from them is an automotive repair shop, or used car sales.
So-
shop next to it on the other side?
No, we do not.
No, I'm thinking like 1018, I'm looking at it. I've had my business has worked with Kerr, and that was their building. I believe that's still yours, and that's not being used right now.
That is no longer owned by us.
So I think that's one of the questions is like, are we going to have a CUP for that one, for something very similar? I think that's the kind of the slippery slope that you're talking about. Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess what I'm struggling with though is, just based on what's been presented today, this is part of a neighborhood network of businesses, small businesses. And I'm trying to figure out, and I think that's important. And I think it's important to have a business like that in the neighborhood that's close and that neighbors can use. I think there's a positive thing to that. I've been impressed by the fact that we've had a couple of people speak in support that said, I use them. I have this business here and I use them. And I think there are jobs. There is an opportunity for people to have that service close by. And I think, if you have a car that needs work, having it closer makes a lot more sense than having to take it outside of town. And again, I think that the business network's important. And I appreciate, kind of where we've come from, but I'm also looking at the vibrancy of that kind of a network in that kind of a space. And I'm not sure where that leaves me as far as how to vote, because I do think there's some issues. I think, as a body, do we feel strongly about this use? But if they come back and somebody comes back and says, well, we bought this building and you did this, so why don't you let us do that? Are we in a position to say no? And I think that's where the issue is, because I think if you let everything go back to what it was, then we've completely defeated the purpose. But I think, based on the facts that are here today, I think I can make a pretty strong case for supporting the part of that, what we've identified as the Fifth Street plan. Just from the standpoint of what you're giving back to the neighborhood. And I think what frustrates me in these situations, which is nobody's fault but mine, I suppose, I grew up with that neighborhood being, there was an awful lot of auto on that neighborhood. I mean, going from Adams Motor Company all the way to the top of the hill. And, I've got stories for a lot of those buildings. Well, the issue, though, for us now is a lot of those buildings are dark. And there's no way that suits, what we want to do with that kind of a plan. And, they've been dark for a while. I don't know what the reasons are, but they've been dark for a while. And to me, that's becoming a bigger and bigger part of Lynchburg. So if there's a way for us to give back to small businesses and have some of those businesses step in and create something that does something for the neighborhood, not just for the business, then I think it's something that we need to take a hard look at, understanding that there may be some implications and some consequences that we're going to have to decide whether we're going to deal with or not. But, we're not there yet. We're where we are. And what makes sense for the property that we have now and for the neighborhood that we're trying to serve and to represent.
I'm truly struggling with this, if I'm being honest. I mean, I hear your compelling story, and I do think family and community and the way you presented yourselves today is truly compelling. I drive down that street every morning to take my kid to school, and I see tons of kids walking to go to school through the Fifth Street. The Fifth Street corridor up to EC Glass and even further. So when I read about the comprehensive plan in the Fifth Street, comprehensive plan, I envision a neighborhood that is beautiful and safe and well-maintained and, beaming with life. And no part of that vision, and I have to say it's because I'm biased and very subjective in this manner, does it include all of the car mechanics and body shops that have certainly been there for a while and the ones that have been recently approved. And it feels as I ride through, and again, this is just one man's opinion. I'm certainly not speaking for anyone else up here. It feels like we're slipping backwards from the vision of what the community, frankly, had hoped for that area. And I'm not suggesting that your business ideas or your plans are not good for the community. I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting it makes this a very difficult decision, not because of the people that would be able to have a good income and steady and stable job, but because of the future of this community. And again, I'm only one person speaking.
But keep in the back of your mind, in order to look at the possibility of other businesses, coffee shop, convenience store, besides the neighborhood, there has to be another source. Now, if people are working, or there's people there waiting to have their cars repaired, you're creating even more of a base for development in that area. And I understand your concerns with, okay, if we let this go, then this could explode. Well, part of that really is what you're here for, to keep it incremental, to keep it in control. You have the say, you can help be part of what that vision is. People are willing to work with you on that. and not create an eyesore. Nobody wants that. By the same token, when we're talking about kids walking up and down the streets, do they want to walk past a viable business where if something happens and if somebody got hurt for some reason, they can go into the business and get help? Or do you want a vacant building? What are they going to do with that? Where can they get help with that? I mean, I see both, I understand both sides. But the other thing is that building and that business has been there since 1949. It hasn't changed.
Planning Commission, if I could offer some thoughts. I mean, I think the struggles that you're talking about right now are, I mean, the conversations that you're having, the discussion, I mean, there's similar to discussions that we had internally as well. I mean, some petitions are cut and dry and others are not so much, right? This is a more difficult one in my assessment. The Fifth Street plan talks about not expanding auto-oriented uses. The rezoning absolutely would have done that. The CUP, in my mind, does not expand. It almost is like a reset to a previously non-conforming use, since the building was a previous. Just that's not a technical term. That's just kind of how I think about it. Kind of reinstating, let's call it that, a reinstatement of a previously non-conforming auto body shop.
Is that what it was? Is that what it was? It was a non-conforming use before?
Yes.
It was not when it was B5, pre-2006. When it became the B6, now B4 Riverfront District, it did become non-conforming.
But they had when did they close the body shop down?
I don't know off the top of my head. After
just like several years ago.
After 2 years, its non-conforming or grandfathered status is lost. So again, you're kind of reinstating that previous use. We're not expanding the footprint. We're not changing the zoning and opening it up to other uses. The conditions to me are what make this palatable, and we'll bring it into closer into keeping with the plan. And so I think, sure.
Rachel, about the conditions, if we do vote in favor of this and we have these conditions, are the conditions enforceable? I mean, if we add, for instance, what Chuck was talking about, getting it painted, get the broken glass fixed up, so the condition could be the building must be maintained in good condition, I would think would be condition number 5. But if for some reason people started parking cars on the street, or you could see the junk cars in the back that you didn't want to see, would the zoning enforcement czar go in there and
so that is what we always want to see with the condition, is something specific and enforceable. We don't want it. That's kind of the balance, right? We don't want to be too detailed so that it's so rigid, but we don't want to be so vague that the zoning administrator is going to have trouble enforcing it. And I mean, our code does have the provision in it for revocation of a conditional use permit, and that's that if the owner or occupant fails to comply with the conditions, or it's determined to create a nuisance in the community, City Council does have the ability to revoke that CUP after a public hearing. So if it got, I mean, I think that's been used one time in memorable history. But if it got to a point where it was creating a nuisance or a problem, council does have that ability. But yes, we would attempt to achieve compliance through the zoning administrator prior to that.
Thank you.
When did you say it became a non-conforming use originally?
So in 2006, I want to say I'd have to check the packet to be sure. In 2000, maybe it was 2006 was the plan, 2007 was the rezoning of the area. So that is when it became
So it operated
non-conforming.
as a non-conforming use for
Several years, I believe.
And it's still being operated as a non-conforming, in a non-conforming way, because there's a car wash there. So that's that is my whole crux of my point, is that it's still being used non-conformingly as a car wash. And I don't understand why they can't continue to use it in a non-conforming way, but have their auto placed there. And I think it differentiates the property. And so if we have other CUPs try to come before us, I think there's a difference here because it's already non-conforming as a car wash.
So Rachel, why isn't 1111 in this petition? It's part of the use. It's like contiguous and it's actually part of the parking lot. Is that a mistake or?
So
you see what I'm saying?
I do see what you're saying. We had that conversation with the petitioner. Originally, they even for the CUP, we talked about whether or not they would need the parking lot. And at first, they said they wouldn't. They would only need the 1101. And we said, well, if you're going to be storing cars, you need to include 1107 as well. So that is where they left it. But they said they only needed that much space.
So if we were to go by an 1111 had like 15 cars parked on it, that would be a problem too. I think that's one of the issues I have is that the person doing the work is not the petitioner. The petitioner is the business owner who owns the land. But the person who's doing the work, those are the kind of things that we have to. Yeah, the tenant is the one who determines if the tests are going to be done, not the landowner. It's the person running the building that DEQ is going to come check. It's the person who's the tenant who's going to be in charge of taking care of all that stuff. It would be a lot easier if we had an understanding of that, because I do think that other part of the lot is probably going to be needed. That's a significant amount of space. But I do think I think my biggest issue is that the same landowner owns buildings across the street, and I feel like we're going to run into the same issue again, which is that thing where you keep doing this. Maybe I should have in the condition that you will not do this with your property across the street. That wouldn't be fair. But
we don't own the property across the street.
You don't own that.
The one that we heard last time about.
No, I'm talking about the garage across the way. It was Mr. Kerr's main garage for quite a while, and then his garage went up.
Yeah, 1018 is now under separate
That's not
ownership.
That's not yours anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's what I asked. I thought you said that was yours. So yeah, I hate to see these kind of things keep coming up. The fact that it's conditional leads me a little bit more to say I might consider supporting it based on like a rigid reading of our conditions and the way the building looks. I do think, as we think about residential use, I mean, that's one of the things that we're talking about with residential use, making things a little bit more intensive, making lots smaller. I think in the future, we're going to see more business uses that we have to figure out how to use in other spaces. And so I could see this as being a test case to see if it really works, getting something that maybe wasn't conforming. If it was a car sales lot, it actually would look very different. But I think you can actually have a very discreet business in an area like that and have a hard time even knowing really what it is other than the name on the building. So it's kind of my 2 cents.
Well, if there's no more discussion, I would propose that we accept the recommendation with the conditions as presented.
Is that these 4 that are listed? Or are there any of the others we discussed?
Yeah, maybe that we have something a little more specific in agreement with the city approval of how this is going to conform to what we're trying to do on 5th Street. So, I mean, we don't have to come up with, this many bricks, this color paint, this kind of sign. But I think we do need something, because we are making an exception here that, because one person's, this looks great, is another person's, oh my goodness, So there needs to be probably, at least in my view, a consensus between what we're talking about here and where we're going.
I don't know that we can do that. I mean, for one thing, if we're going to vote on it today, we need to know what those conditions are today before we vote on it. The other thing is, if they wanted to paint the building bright Pepto-Bismol pink, it's not our business to say they can't. It's not a historic district.
Kicking the can over, at least from my perspective, to city offices.
Well,
Good.
you can kick it, but we'll have to kick the whole thing till next month or something if you do.
I don't know. Anybody else have a suggestion on that?
I would say we add a condition that says the building must be maintained in good condition. That includes broken windows and peeling paint.
I mean, good condition is about as,
Pardon?
good condition to me would seem, about as random a description, don't you think, is a nice color?
No, I think in good condition means there's not peeling paint, there's not broken glass, the roof isn't caving in, there's not grass growing all over the thing, there are not vines pulling this roof off. I don't know, is that too general?
Like
Rich?
condition 2 actually does lay out, like it says landscaping. I mean, it does have some,
Subject to
we don't, in our comprehensive plan in this like Fifth Street corridor, I don't think we have like decor recommendations, do we?
Yeah.
Like it must be this or it must be that.
There are some design suggestions on materials,
Fencing.
avoiding vinyl, things like that.
Which is why we're
Yeah,
seeing
and
the
you have that in there.
similarities in
You
design.
have that in there. So
Yeah.
it's hard to make it stricter, I guess.
And the other I did like your suggestion of, making sure that whatever they disposed of was out of sight, that there wouldn't be, car parts, showing.
So do we have consensus on the disposal of parts being properly disposed of, secured, not visible from the street? Does that sound like a reasonable condition for that piece?
Sounds reasonable to me.
Okay. So we'll at least add that one.
And then as far as the condition of the building, you could say good condition subject to approval of the city planner, put it back on you.
Do we
but-
have maintenance guidelines or
There are,
aesthetic guidelines that we can employ in this case based on the new buildings going up?
there are building code requirements against peeling paint, and that's not aesthetic because the paint preserves the
lead-based or
wood,
whatever.
right? You peel paint, if paint starts peeling, moisture gets in, and it's a maintenance issue. I think adding a condition like the building will be maintained in proper condition.
Consistent with standard code guidelines. Does it meet code right now? If it does, the bar is going to be set pretty low.
Well, so a secured window, a boarded window is technically secured. That's a code requirement.
There you go.
Right. Yeah, it's a tough one,
It
guys.
seems like there's nothing there we can use, isn't it? So
And that's kind of,
But, if we don't, if this doesn't go through today and it again gets denied by city council, it's not like the building, somebody's going to buy the building and renovate it. It's going to be this beautiful like Fifth Street corridor, vision that was, it's not like that's going to happen.
Although I do know someone who wanted to buy the building, so I wouldn't say that.
Oh, really?
Yes.
But, I just worry. You've got, the few restaurants that open down the street, closed down. Vito's is closed, the coffee shop's gone, Gray's has now changed hands, but, it's, there's the shopping, the clothing store that was right there is gone. So, I don't know.
Well, all this discussion will be reflected in the minutes. You know, staff can work to try to craft a condition to suggest to council based on this discussion. You know, we won't say that the commission has voted on it, because if we can't figure out the wording today, you know, we could just note that that was a point of discussion for and a concern for the commission. And then council can choose to adopt that at the time of the public hearing. I mean, council can set its own conditions too, so there's no problem adding a condition at that time.
Do you want to simply add the one about the
Yeah, we can.
parks being visible?
Yeah, I think since there's consensus on that and we've got pretty clear language, I think we can add that one in.
We could add maintaining good condition of the property as well, and then if it needs to be tweaked by council, they can choose to do that.
Okay, and so.
Can we say consistent in appearance, not in appearance, but maintain consistent with the new constructions going up that are consistent with the comprehensive plan? And
Consistent with what? The new construction?
because there is a lot, and Tom pointed, there is some new construction going up there. There's some buildings that have been torn down, new buildings that have gone up, you know, and they have a look, they're a newer look, and I'm not saying we can make an old building look new, although you can, you know, but again, I
think it's a nice building, brother. I think it cleaned up. I
potential.
think it would, yeah. I don't have any issue with the building itself. I don't think that would be needed.
It's, and that's why I was suggesting earlier, if there was a way to see what the idea was on this, because again, once it comes out of council and it's done, it's a done deal. And if it stays looking by and large like it is, well, have we done a service to what we've been trying to do for the last 10 years to the city, you know? And I'm, based on what I'm hearing, it's going to be really hard to do anything other than put a level of trust in the occupants and the tenants here, that this place is going to look like it belongs in the new Fifth Street corridor and not the old Fifth Street corridor. In other words, that it's going to conform to the character of what the city's trying to do, rather than looking like the exception that's being made. If we make an exception and it continues to look like an exception, there's going to be some disappointment, I think. But if it's brought up to where it looks like it belongs as part of what the city's vision is for this, then I think there'll be some happier people there.
I guess one thing I'd say before we feels like we're kind of at an end point, but I think that's the beauty of the conditional use, because I do believe that if a business is in there under the condition and the business closes or moves, there's no grandfathering. No one can come in and open another body shop there under that condition. Is that correct?
So we were having that conversation today with the zoning administrator. I don't believe there is
Automatic termination.
Automatic termination for a conditional use permit. But that was something that I was not able to confirm prior to the meeting. You know, the Durbins, we have worked a lot with them, you know, and it's our understanding that they intend to make the building look good. And I know it's the commission and of course our concern that continues to happen no matter who's holding the keys to the building. You know, one person's nice is another person's not so nice. I think if you feel strongly about the condition of the building, we can add a condition like that it will be maintained in good condition. We can try to come up with some language to meet that, no peeling paint, no broken windows, that sort of thing. But that would be my recommendation, is to do that.
I go with that. So I'll second Bob's motion.
So the motion,
So the motion, as it stands right now, is to accept the recommendation as presented with the conditions that are presented, with the
additional,
About junk disposal.
junk disposal.
Condition of the building.
Thank you.
Before I vote, I want one more clarification. I feel like the whole time I've been on here that when we've had conditional uses, if ownership change or something like that, that has to be renewed. It can't automatically just stay like, so what you're saying is this can be a body shop for 100 years now. once it's conditional use is approved,
Yeah, that was my concern. One of them.
which I don't think that's ever been how things have been operated when questions have been asked. So like, well, once that changes, yeah, they'd have to come back up to renew a conditional use.
So I mean, if a condition needed to change or a proffer needed to change, that would be the case. But I mean, you've got to think about some things that we allow by conditional use permit. For example, in R3, I believe we allow townhomes by CUP. That is a permanent structure that if a CUP is granted, someone goes and builds, and those things are acquired, change hands, that sort of thing. And new owners are not having to come back and get a conditional use permit for townhomes again.
Even if they burn down?
That's what I was going to say, if it was gone. So it's really a permanent rezoning.
Well,
So it might have been, well, just
well, my
vote for
understanding
B5.
though is,
But it's for this specific use. It does not rezone the property.
It doesn't, they can't do anything else that is out of the zone.
plus the fact that conditional use permit is conditional. I mean, it can be withdrawn, right?
It can be
Condition on
revoked.
what?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean,
Couldn't it expire after 2 years of being empty in the same way that the grandfather clause expires after 2 years of being not used? But I guess we just don't know. But
my understanding was, yeah. And that's why you.
Rachel's like,
I know.
I'm sorry, guys. My brain's getting tired.
yeah.
No, I don't believe it would expire if it were if the use ceased.
So it's not like non-conforming, it's just still,
Right.
Yeah.
still, okay.
Commission, if you're not comfortable voting until we have that information, I mean, it is in your purview to table. That does extend the calendar for them a little bit. But it would also give more time to figure out that condition, if that's what you want to do. I'm not trying to encourage you one way or the other.
I mean, if this gentleman's operating his business and 2 years later, he's so successful, he moves. Is this building still going to be zoned with the conditional use permit? What is the condition for the use permit in this case? I mean, is it conditioned that it be used for this specific purpose, or is it conditioned on what? I
It's
mean, 'cause-
this use with these conditions.
Okay, and not for a specific owner. It is,
What I'm saying is that it stays with the property even if it's sold as well.
Yes.
yeah, but there has to be a condition that terminates the conditional use. Otherwise, what Tom said applies to permanent rezoning.
is
And-
the answer to that question specific to Lynchburg? I mean, does Lynchburg have its own, or is it a state? It's specific to Lynchburg, so
It's uniform. Like,
Oh,
I
it's
think this is
uniform.
a regular.
I did just look up something, and it was Appomattox that said after 2 years, it runs with the
Yeah, after 2
land,
years.
except after 2 years of non-usage. A conditional use permit runs with the land,
So why is the
except-
city attorney here at our meetings?
I know, right?
Where's Matt?
Except after 2 years of non-use. So
We have two motions.
we have two motions. What was the second one?
You made a second motion?
No, I
think she
seconded it.
You just
Yeah,
seconded it.
yeah.
Motion,
Okay.
And we were, and the
All right, any-
addition of the addition,
With the-
the addition of the conditions.
Right.
Addition of additional conditions.
Okay, any further discussion before we vote? All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
So the motion carries.
For the minutes, was that Dave and Dave?
Yes,
On the
Dave and
nay.
Dave
Day to
opposed.
day.
Congratulations. Good luck. Good luck with city council.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
I like this.
The next order of business is the following new business, the petition of Daniel Cyrus on behalf of Rosedale Investments LLC to rezone approximately 3 3/10 acres located at 1600 Grays Mill Road from B3C Community Business District Conditional to B3C Community Business District Conditional to revise proffers and allow an adjustment in orientation of a fueling station canopy. Rachel, would you like to present this?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of Planning Commission. This property is located at 1600 Graves Mill Road. It is a 3 3/10 acre portion of the 62 acre tract that is proposed for rezoning. The subject property was annexed into the city in 1976. The portion proposed for rezoning is considered part of the Rosedale Cluster Commercial Development and is zoned B3C Community Business District Conditional. This was established in 2 phases in 2014 and 2015. Prior to that, the property was zoned R1 Low Density Residential. Along with the rezonings, conditional use permits were also issued to create the Cluster Commercial District of Rosedale. The comprehensive plan recommends mixed use for the area. These areas do not fit into any single land use category, as they are planned for a mix of uses carefully designed to mitigate potential land use conflicts. The petition proposes to amend previously approved proffers by allowing an adjustment in the orientation of a proposed fueling site canopy. The 2014 plan, which you see here, showed the gas station and convenience store on the corner at the intersection of Graves Mill Road and Rosedale Boulevard, with gas canopies and parking areas located to the side and behind the store. This was in keeping with the pedestrian-oriented Main Street style development that was presented as part of the original petition by locating the building up front on the corner to contribute to the street wall and shifting parking to the rear and side of the property. This layout was an intentional choice made by the petitioner at the suggestion of planning staff, actually, who noted that the preliminary concept plan, not this one, but their initial submittal, had several uses, such as the convenience store, restaurants, and grocery buildings set back from the street, which did not meet the goals of the cluster commercial development and did not promote walkability. The plan was modified to pull the buildings up toward the street and move the canopies and parking to the rear. The petitioner has requested that the canopy be located in front of the store along Graves Mill Road with a parking area fronting Rosedale Boulevard. This is contrary to the walkable mixed-use development that the area received previous approvals to become. While the placement of the gas station and parking areas may seem trivial, it's design choices like this that have a direct impact on the overall functionality of the development. The Rosedale development, as I said, was presented and approved by City Council as a walkable Main Street style development. Some of the goals of the original layout met and are listed, as you can see here, relating to, design of the street, how the buildings interact with the street, building orientation and placement being very important to walkability. And there are more here, highlighting, again, some key components of the report. And understandably, things have evolved, like all projects do. Staff has worked with the developer on the layout over the years, noting that substantial compliance does have some flexibility, but planning staff does not support moving away from the design principles that were meant to serve as this project's foundation. So the planning division recommends denial of the petition to amend proffers. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Who is here to speak on behalf of the petition?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Good to see you all again. My name is Daniel Cyrus. I represent Rosedale Development. First, I'd like to start by thanking you all for your time and thanking staff for all of their time that they've put into this particular part of the project and this project as a whole. I'm sure that each of you are familiar with the Rosedale mixed-use project, a very large project that is going on Graves Mill Road currently. We have worked with staff for several years on this project now, as Mr. Verscheisen pointed out, as this project has evolved. As was pointed out, the original rezoning and the original master plan was set forth and was approved back in 2014. So obviously that has been some time ago. Currently on the project, we have delivered a fairly substantial number of residential units. We are also in the process of constructing a mixed-use building, which will contain restaurants, retail uses, and office uses that are a part of the project. We're very excited to be here this evening, to be here in partnership with Wawa, which is a new brand that's coming to our area. And this potentially being one of the first locations that they could be coming to in the Lynchburg area. That That being said, really what we're here to discuss this afternoon is not necessarily the use. The convenience store use was a use that was allowed as part of the original rezoning, and that has not been disputed. But really what we're here to talk about, as Ms. Frischweisen has pointed out, has been the layout and orientation as it relates to the project. Obviously, if you look at the overall plan as was submitted. Oh, I need a moment. Sorry, technical difficulties. If you look at the overall plan, this is the first plan that was submitted that you all saw an enlargement of the convenience store portion a moment ago, which is kind of, I guess you can't see that on the screen, but at the lower side on the right corner, you saw that enlargement that showed the canopy not fronting on Grays Mill or on Rosedale Boulevard, and the building pulled closer to the street. That being said, when you look at this overall plan and you look at what's currently being constructed there today, you'll note that there are some very distinct changes. You'll also note that as part of this plan and as part of the CUP process, one of the things that was outlined and that was a part of this is an enlargement from that plan, which is a note that basically says that the uses and layout shown are for concept only and are subject to change based on future needs for both residential and commercial uses in the area. Essentially, part of the cluster commercial plan approval process was to denote uses and architectural styles and try to create an overall vision for the property. And that's really what we've tried to do as a part of this. So this is a rendering of the overall property. As you all have probably seen driving past here, some of these buildings starting to come up, the residential buildings in the rear. You've seen this kind of come to fruition. Obviously, this is substantially different from what the originally approved 2014 master plan was. We've worked really closely with Wawa as a part of this to maintain a similar architectural style from their building to the buildings that we're currently building there. We have voluntarily put in place architectural guidelines in order to require future commercial tenants that are a part of this property to be in conformance with the overall look and feel of the development. And I think that's really what we're getting at here from a planning perspective, right? Is, as far as the comp plan dictates, the idea of the orientation of the canopy is really to create a visually appealing streetscape as one is driving through, whether it's Grays Mill or whether it's Rosedale Boulevard, which is another public street that ultimately has plans to connect back to Breezewood, which ultimately connects to 501 and to 221. And so, overall, I think it's important to understand that whether this canopy faces Grays Mill Road, as we have it currently proposed, or whether the canopy was to face Rosedale Boulevard. Grays Mill Road obviously is a heavily trafficked street today. Rosedale Boulevard is projected as part of our traffic study and how we've had to construct this road to have similar traffic counts to Grays Mill Road at build out of this entire project. So both of these are going to be primary arterial streets. That being said, the property is currently zoned B3 conditional. There are no guidelines in B3 that would necessitate or require the canopy to be installed in a location anywhere on the property. In other words, the only requirements are for the setbacks, which in B3 are 0 feet on the front and sides and 25 feet in the rear. So if this property was zoned as just B3 without the cluster commercial component, this would be a by right use. So it's really comes down to the component that we have as far as the visual impact that this potentially has. And I think that, we have worked very hard and we greatly respect staff's perspective as far as trying to be able to maintain a quality visual product at the end of the day. And that's really our goal as well. This is just another view from the intersection at Rosedale Boulevard of what the proposed building and proposed canopy would look like. You can see that we've matched a lot of the finishes on the building to the finishes that are on the existing residential buildings, which will eventually match the other commercial uses that are a part of this project. So I said all that to say that, you know, there are several items that the comprehensive plan states that Ms. Frischweisen alluded to as part of her Planning Commission report. And I think a couple of those of note, number one, as she pointed out, is the pedestrian scale, pedestrian walkability. But not only, the comprehensive plan doesn't only talk about pedestrian walkability and pedestrian accessibility, it also talks about vehicular accessibility. And so I think that's something that's important of note. You know, the concept plan that we have proposed here and the reason for the canopy orientation as it is in order to promote both the pedestrian and the vehicular accessibility as part of the site. Obviously, you know, you guys have been to large fuel stations throughout the region, everywhere, right? Everybody has. Everybody knows that, you know, the majority of the traffic happens around the fuel island, right? So it's beneficial for users to space the entrance away from the fuel island. So, you know, it seems like there's no lane of traffic in the fuel island. We all know that, right? People dart out in front of you and back up, and you don't know where anybody's going, right? So from a safety perspective, that's a big reason and a big goal why this orientation is proposed. And the other part of this is, you know, as a convenience store, you know, one of the things that this brand sells, just like any other convenience store, you know, they're there to sell their service, right? And so if people drive past and they see cars at the fuel islands, they see cars getting fuel, you know, it's like a car lot. You wouldn't put all of your new cars in the back of the car lot where you couldn't see them. You want people to drive past, see a bright, shiny new vehicle and say, hey, maybe I need one of those and stop, right? So I think really the question that we have here today, in my mind, is trying to balance, similar to you all's discussion earlier, ironically, trying to balance the goals of the comprehensive plan, which I feel like this does meet a lot of those goals and really a lot of the standards that are set forth as part of this, and also trying to balance safety and accessibility for users and for citizens. And also, you know, just the opportunity to have another business within the city of Lynchburg that is new to the area. And, you know, I think will be a huge impact to the Rosedale project overall, as well as the area. You know, we announced this project several months ago, have had extremely positive comments from many of our tenants that live in the area already about how excited they are to see this happen and see this move forward. You know, adjoining businesses about how excited they are to see this. So, you know, I think that this is a really great opportunity for us to add another exciting component to the overall Rosedale project. So with that, I won't take up too much more of your time. I will just say, obviously, I am here and happy to answer any questions. I also have Jeb Bell with me this afternoon, who's a real estate representative from Wawa. He would be happy to answer any questions that you guys might have specifically about the business or any specific questions as to their operations as well. And we appreciate you all's time and consideration.
Thank you. Is there anybody else here to speak in favor of the petition? Or anybody opposed? So we'll close the public hearing and open up questions to the commissioners.
Just real quick point of clarification. Did you say that the traffic on the Rosedale side of the building is going to be as traffic heavy as the Graysville Road?
Yes, sir. So as a part of the project, we have obviously had to conduct a traffic study. Rosedale Boulevard is, and maybe if I can drive a little bit here, this will give you a better perception. So, so this just shows like an overall, this is what we call the adjusted master plan which were the changes that we worked through staff in making into what you currently see today. This doesn't actually show the current orientation of the Wawa, but this just gives you an overall image, right? So you can see the middle road through there, we call the Spine Road, that's Rosedale Boulevard. At completion, that's projected to have a similar amount of traffic as Gray's Mill is projected to have at that time, because eventually this road will actually run all the way through and connect to Breezewood. The city has plans to upgrade Breezewood in order to create additional connectivity to the expressway and to Route 221.
Rachel, can you explain what the objection is to this new plan? It looks like, for one thing, they've moved the convenience store from over here to over there, right?
Yeah, so it's not as much about what side of the road it's on. I mean, that's part of the flexibility that when we say substantial compliance.
Because there's a scenic corridor, is that why?
No, so it's not because of the scenic corridor. So can we flip to?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
Thanks. I think this kind of shows it best. So, it was mentioned that if this were B3 and not part of the CCD, that it would be by right. There's no setback requirement, that sort of thing. To me, it's not by right. The Rosedale development got special permission to create a clustered commercial development. It received approval based on how it was presented. We've seen this happen on other projects as well. And again, projects always evolve, right? But the development is proposed as one thing, and then the things that make it appealing, that lean us toward approval, sometimes those important pieces, those important elements kind of get lost or chipped away at over time. And we get further and further from the vision that we were sold when the plan was approved. So that is my objection. It met the principles of the Main Street development. Having the building on the corner was important at the time. I know, it is a concept, and we get that. And that's why, there's no issue with moving the convenience store from moving one side of the street to the other. It's more about the walkability principle and, again, the Main Street style design that was an integral part of the cluster commercial development that received approval.
So would you, looking at this plan with that store being moved, if the canopy were on the back side of it, would that be a game changer for you?
If the building were
If the
were
building
pulled up?
were where the canopy is and the canopy were put in the back, would that be, would you have said, I'm going to approve that?
I would like to see the parking as well follow the plan. But, that's not what they've
I guess flip-flop,
proposed.
but like if you spun that right around, then you'd have a building that's fronting on the road, a little bit of parking on the road. But in other words, I'm asking if the layout was changed, we've moved the store, like if the footprint's changed, would that be, is that the opposition is the footprint actually is totally different too?
I'm trying to understand really what the objection is. Is it an orientation question? Is it a configuration question?
You mentioned walkability, and I don't
What's the
imagine
objection?
too many people walking.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got all of these roads and, well, that's the old, no, that's the old plan
I
I'm
think
looking
it's-
at with restaurants here and restaurants there and.
It's more about the walkability design principle for the entire development. And that's what City Council ultimately approved was the clustered commercial development. They weren't looking at gas station here, restaurant there. It was, the entire conglomeration of uses and the layout. And like I said, it was an intentional. It was a concern in the initial drawing, way back in probably 2013 when that was submitted, and it was called out, and it was an intentional choice to move away from that to try to meet the clustered commercial design guidelines and just general walkability principles. And like I said, it's more about how it kind of ties into the entire development. It's also kind of the front door of the development. I think that's very important, how it's presented. And I know that, the rendering looks nice. But to me, like I said, it's more about the design principle that was meant to be the entire development's foundation. Are we willing to change that now?
Can we speak a little bit about the walkability specific to this and the overall property?
Sure, come on up.
If you don't mind, I'll just speak a little bit about the walkability of the overall property. And I think Jeb would be able to give us some really great insight specific to Wawa and its operations and kind of how they actually really focus on it being a pedestrian friendly area. And so just from an overall perspective, the entire property has sidewalks on both sides of the street. There are pedestrian crosswalks that are included throughout. That's actually part of the reasoning behind the roundabouts, because it allows for a more efficient flow of pedestrian traffic. So there are actually pedestrian walkways that are right in this area that will allow residents to walk from their residence down to this business, as well as the other businesses that are located adjacent to it, as well as the businesses that will be located above it. In addition to that, there will be businesses that will be built directly adjoining this. As part of the city code requirements, we'll have pedestrian accommodation between those businesses. Like I said earlier, we've already gotten a lot of really positive feedback from current tenants that are currently living there about how excited they are, to be able to walk down there, in the evening and get something to eat or get, something, a snack or whatever the case may be, and walk back. We've seen similar things happen at other similar projects that we've built in the city of Lynchburg that have kind of very similar pedestrian accommodations that are associated with those. And with that said, I think Jeb can talk more about the Wawa portion of that as well.
You'll state your name.
Yeah, Jeb Bell. I'm real estate manager with Wawa for Virginia. It's a pleasure to be here this morning, and thank you all for your community service. Firstly, I just want to say really quick, we're really excited to be coming to Lynchburg. It's been a long time in the making. We committed to this project, a matter of months ago. So for me, standing here and seeing the plan from 2014, I can tell you, Wawa was not, at all a conception, right? So please understand that. If you're not familiar with our brand, we are probably considered the best at what we do in the country. We've been doing convenience stores since 1964, and a lot of the functionality of the site has been, this has been refined over decades. When we look at a site like this and we look at where people are going to be coming to access our store, if you're familiar with Daniel's development, there's all these apartments behind. So I would say 99% of any pedestrian traffic is going to be coming from the rear. So I think from that perspective, I like this layout with the store closer to the buildings. Functionally and from a safety perspective, we like this orientation because we're a 24-hour operation, and we have police drive by at 3 a.m, and they can, in a second, drive by and they can see inside our store. A lot of the safety and security of our stores is derived around it not being appealing to people who have bad intentions. So we like to have our site fully visible, and it disincentivizes bad behavior, basically. I think when you look at the store as it was originally conceived in 2014, and they did this layout with a small store on the corner, it's just not functional, right? So we want to have full circulation around our building for delivery. We don't want a condition where a truck has to come in and maybe back up anywhere. So usually when you get into a situation where the store doesn't have that full circulation, you introduce those types of things. But yeah, I just want to say thank you, and I'm here for additional questions.
Thank you. So there's the street, or the pull-in has changed from the original because it looks like there was an exit coming out of, going towards 221 from that side, but now they're actually going to be adding it in the other way, like with a turnoff sorry?
There is a turn lane proposed.
Yes, so I guess that is there any additional, traffic issues or, any additional comments from?
No, the city engineer didn't
make any comments.
have a comment about that. I mean, of course, traffic studies were done as part of the
Originally, yeah.
Um,
So I was
and,
just curious.
They didn't have any comments on revising the layout. If I could offer my perspective on what Daniel said, and respectfully, but walkability is about more than sidewalks. It's about building form. It's about orientation and placement of the buildings. The 2014 report noted that the street wall is an essential component of a walkable design. If you've ever been walking down any of our streets downtown and you come across a vacant lot or a parking lot, that changes how you feel as a pedestrian in a place. It doesn't encourage you to keep walking. It doesn't necessarily feel as comfortable because you don't have that street wall. There are sidewalks, but I think, there's more to it than just having sidewalks and crosswalks.
And I know this is unorthodox, but if I could add one more thing to that.
Sure.
I guess, is there a question for him?
I have a question.
Okay, but we seem to be running around the 10-minute limit with just this back and forth discussion. If there are direct questions for the petitioner, that's fine.
Safety question, maybe it's more for the Wawa gentleman, but is it fair to say, and I'm coming from a source of ignorance here, that having the canopy, because if all of the development's up here and if there will be heavy pedestrian walkability, what have you, coming from the top side down, from where I'm looking here, is it fair to say that this canopy on this side of the building creates more safety measures?
Right. And that was the point I was kind of trying to make earlier is, the automotive movements are more well known in the drive aisles, right? You know which direction cars are moving. At the canopies, there's a little bit less, you have people that make a little bit more erratic movements, right? At a fueling station. I think everybody's seen that in any gas station that you've gone to. I agree really with what Rachel is saying, actually, as far as the pedestrian accommodations being more than sidewalks and being more, as far as creating the street wall, right? And I think that where we differ on that opinion a little bit is that from our perspective, the pedestrians that we believe are going to be utilizing this site are going to come from the residential, which are to the rear of the site. And so that's why we feel like that having the building pulled towards the rear of the site and having the other buildings in this area pulled towards the rear of the site are going to create that street wall on the rear side. They may not create it on Grays Mill Road. And although we've placed sidewalks along the frontage of Grays Mill Road, the speed limit through there is 45 miles an hour. It's not somewhere that I would personally walk my dog, right? But that's just me. I would be very comfortable walking it internal to the development. So I think that really by pulling that building back, we're creating that situation, that street wall from a visual perspective. And it's also addressing the safety concerns, which is part of the comprehensive plan as well. The comprehensive plan is not just the pedestrian accommodations that need to be made. And the other thing that I'll note that's unique about Wawa is that, and this, I probably didn't explain this very well earlier, but in a lot of different markets, they really cater towards pedestrians, certainly much more so than most automotive type users like a convenience store, gas station, right? In that, they don't just have a front door, right? So they also have doors, they can be on the side, can be to the rear of the building. So again, somebody can easily have a walkable experience from the rear of this property and have a safer experience. Hopefully that answers your question.
It does.
Thank you.
So have we had any alternative designs or suggestions for this? Or is this just, I'm looking, I love to look and see what's going on in other places because I often feel like when we're talking about development in Lynchburg, developers often will do the least, and there's places that hold a high bar and they still will do it, but it's a matter of pushing. So I'm looking at one from Pennsylvania where the canopy's on the side of the building, and the main roads are on corners of the building, Delco, Pennsylvania. So they had 3 different designs they presented. They had one with the canopy facing the road and a canopy on the side. And so I'm wondering if did we get the opportunity to get other designs for this space? Because I think that if the canopy were on the side, not in the back, but on the side, I mean, that might be something that, and we've done that in Windhurst. There's a gas station the same way. It's a convenience store. It's to the back of the lot, you know, and then there's entrance and there's canopies on the side of the building. So I don't know if that's something we've had any opportunity to see.
This whole thing would turn
Yeah.
90 degrees clockwise.
I think
Would that change?
what I would say respectfully is that we've had the pleasure to work with Wawa throughout Central Virginia. And in that, obviously, there have been a lot of different orientations and different layouts. And there are so many items that facilitate that, right? So to your question about this Lynchburg standard, right? You know, and whether that is lower than other localities or whether other localities hold a higher standard. You know, we've done projects in other localities to where they've had more stringent standards from a base zoning district. In other words, what I was referring to earlier about the B3, and Rachel's right, this is not B3. Well, it is B3, but you know, it's also cluster commercial development. But we've worked in localities that have had much more stringent standards in their base zoning, and you know, they have been able to work with us and understand about the need for the circulation that's part of the site. You know, the circulation is not just as simple as rotating the canopy 90 degrees and facing it to Rosedale Boulevard, which, I mean, I think that it's worth mentioning again that at build out, Rosedale Boulevard is going to be as much of a primary street as Gray's Mill is today. So, sure.
And I'm thinking not even I'm thinking the other side of Rosedale. I mean, people come to Wawa, they're not coming for the gas, they're coming for the food. That's why people love Wawa. So I think in a lot of times it doesn't really matter, but companies have designs they want to stick with. And that's one way, have we worked with planning staff to try to look at other designs that fit this space? Or is this just what we're given and like, well, this is it?
I mean, I think Rachel can probably speak to that better than I can. We've met with planning staff on this matter. How many times would you say? At least 10 times? I mean, many times. You know, we have tried to address concerns, address, you know, comments. And again, you know, from our perspective, the circulation around the building is very important. And, you know, the safety of pedestrians and so on and so forth is very important. You know, you're right there, you know, you can look and find all types of different examples of different canopy orientations from different fuel stations in different areas. And it's not just predicated from a zoning perspective, it could be predicated from where the entrances are located, how the circulation works. You know, there is more to it than just where the canopy is oriented as it is as you're facing the front of the site, so to speak. Because really, you know, in this case, this is one of those situations, and we see this a lot more now and now. You know, we look at a building and a site as this is the front. Really, this site has at least 3 fronts, right? So that kind of limits, you know, where certain items can be and where it makes sense visually.
So I never saw a alternate layout for this site, if that's what you're asking. I am not aware of any alternative layout that was presented as part of this. I know you had some meetings with zoning as well, so I don't know if that was part of that conversation, but this is the layout that I've seen the entire petition.
Would you like to see some alternative layouts?
I mean, this is what they are proposing and have proffered, so.
Well, if we're going to change I mean, hypothetically, if you rotated the building, I'm looking at the loading area, where would that go? You're either putting it on the pedestrian side northeast or facing the road, facing Gray's Mill Road on the south side. Right now, it's not really facing anything. Then you have the underground, it's like the petroleum storage facility. Where would that go? It looks like you're almost kind of limited. You'd have to do a major reconfiguration to rotate this building in any other way other than this proposal, without putting the loading area facing
I think
a
we're
main
getting
area.
caught in the weeds a little bit.
Well,
We're not experts on this. We rarely get planning staff recommending denial. I've learned to trust them when they do. And this is something I would leave for the experts to work out till they're in agreement. I'm not going to sit there and debate where an entrance should be or, so we can keep nitpicking it. I think we need to come to a conclusion, one way or the other, how we feel about it. If that sends it back where they debate it and get on the same page, great. But we're not going to come up with the design on our own that they're both going to say, this is great, let's move forward. And that's not our job.
No, I think in Tom's case, we was trying to visit the question of have alternative layouts for this come up, because really, I don't see personally a way you could rotate the building. Could you put the underground storage facility or the canopy somewhere else?
Again, I don't think we need to discuss that. I'm not trying to cut you off, Chuck, but.
Yeah, I think it's more a matter of like,
It's just
should this be
hypothetical.
tabled and see if there may be some alternative?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I think we should vote.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah, I
saying
think-
specifics. I'm saying, yeah, these are just hypothetical.
I think that's our point. I mean, the reason why we haven't offered alternative layouts is because the way that this site is configured, this is the way that this site works for this user. And so, yes, obviously there are alternative layouts in alternative areas. And as I mentioned before, the way those entrances are configured, the way that works, that's what allows that to work. Rotating the building 90 degrees, yes, it puts the loading area in the front of the building. I don't think that is desirable from an aesthetic perspective. It's not desirable from an operational perspective either, or a safety perspective. The way the entrances are located, you can't, it's not as simple as just rotating the building. Frankly, if it was that simple, then we wouldn't be standing here, because this would be probably, under construction at this point. So
The building can't really rotate. If you're talking about anything, you're going to have to talk about moving the storage and the canopy. So, I mean, if that's really what we're talking about here, moving the canopy, well.
And then if you do that, I mean, there's no comments from a traffic perspective with the current layout. But if you do that, then you're going to put drive lanes and put the building, in conflict with the entrances. So then you create a safety situation. And that's where I was kind of coming from the beginning is this what was shown in 2014? No. Obviously, we're not going to stand here and represent that it is. That being said, was Wawa even in the market in 2014? No. Did anybody know what this was going to be at that point? No. You're right. There's one example of a gas station in Windhurst that has the building pulled towards the street and has the canopy behind it. You're correct about that. It's a very different, that's more of a true gas station, right? They don't see the volume that a Wawa sees, not even close to it, right? So that being said, if you look at any other user that's similar to this in Lynchburg market, they're typically set up more in line with this. So, I mean, frankly, that's why we're here this evening. I mean, we feel like this is the layout that works for this user. We feel like we've met the goals of the comprehensive plan. I feel like we've gone over and above to try to create an architecturally pleasing project here. I think that we have a track record of creating architecturally pleasing projects in the area, candidly. And that's a big, important goal for us. We've invested a tremendous amount of time and money into this project, and Rachel's right. This is the gateway into our project. We fought against other things that we thought would be a detriment to the gateway into our project. So, I think that should have some value.
The bottom line is you haven't convinced planning staff to agree, and so you haven't convinced me either. So I think we move ahead with the vote.
Are you making a motion?
Well, this is one of those confusing motions. I was hoping someone else would. Because so I'm going to make a motion
To deny.
that we move to deny the petition as presented by city staff.
So if you vote yes, you're voting to deny the petition.
Correct. We're supporting the recommendation.
I second the motion.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
No,
Opposed?
no.
So the denial carries, right?
It still goes to city council.
Still goes to city
Exactly.
council.
Yes, city council will make that decision.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Is there any other new business?
No new business, just a reminder to, check on the comprehensive plan drafts and add your comments as needed. You have until a week from today.
18th.
18th.
18th, yeah, okay.
And comments are due a week from today.
Okay.
Let me know if you have any trouble with the PDF. And our next meeting will most likely be canceled, so we will see you in October.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor? Aye.